once, Bud. My ass.
I'm only 4. Bonjour, Monsieur Pussycat.
Cracking toast, Robert.
Start spreading the news.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the short podcast about short films. I am your host, and we are discussing the Academy Award for Best Animated Short. Today's episode is about the 16th year of the award at the 20th Academy Awards, which celebrates the films of 1947. Today, we welcome back a friend of the podcast whom you last heard talking about the Old Mill at the 10th Academy Awards. Please say hello to Gordon McNulty. Hello, Gordon.
Hello.
Welcome back, first of all.
Thank you. I'm excited to be back. This is an interesting year. I'll save my thoughts. But I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, we briefly discussed beforehand just how we have this is a very close set of films. It's just they're all kind of in the same range of quality.
Yeah, they're all pretty good.
But before we get into it, remind us, what is your familiarity with the Best Animated Short category?
So, I think this is an interesting year to come about that, in that one of these, I realized while I was watching it for this, I've seen a lot because it was on a compilation VHS that I had as a kid. So there was one of these that I was very familiar with. And a lot, the other ones, I think there was one that I may have seen before. But so that's in general kind of how my relationship to the early years of animated short is that there's some in here that I'm sure I've seen nominees and winners, but just that I don't remember or until I go back and actually watch. I wouldn't know if it triggered a because seeing it on the list that you sent me, I didn't realize that it was one that I had seen until I started watching it this afternoon. So that's about where my familiarity is. I'm not super invested in it, but there are shorts in here that I have seen, and it was interesting to revisit.
Yeah, that's something I really like about the early stages of this category, is that a lot of these shorts are just, things that have stood the test of time that get aired over and over again on Cartoon Network or Disney Channel or whatever.
Yeah.
And so it's just and these are famous characters. We've got a Sylvester short, Donald Duck, Tom and Jerry, Pluto. And it's just these are characters that everyone knows, but may not know specific shorts or be able to identify them out of the crowd. So to come back to these specific shorts and revisit them, analyze them as a singular unit is it's really interesting to think about.
For sure.
Yeah. But let's not delay any further. Let's get into the nominees. This year has 5. The first nominee and the year's winner is Tweetie Pie, directed by Friz Freleng. This is the 3rd nomination for Edward Seltzer and his first win, as well as the 11th nomination and first win for Warner Brothers and the Merry Melody series. This ends the 4-year streak for Fred Quimby and MGM's wins with Tom and Jerry. Instead, we have Sylvester the Cat earning his 2nd nomination, as well as the 1st nomination for Tweetie. The famous pairing, though neither debuted in this short, appear together for the first time here, and were clearly an immediate success. Tweetie was first created by Robert Clampett, and he had earlier plans to pair up Tweetie and Sylvester, but had left the studio before those plans came to fruition. So it ended up being Freleng who brought the two together. Producer Edward Seltzer initially was against the pairing, but relented after Freleng threatened to leave Warner Brothers. Seltzer was eventually the one who accepted this short's Oscar win, and after his death, the Oscar went to Freleng. Now to Tweetie Pie. The short starts with Tweetie all alone out in the cold. Sylvester, though called Thomas by his owner, tries to eat him, but the owner comes out and scolds him and then takes Tweetie in and puts him in a birdcage. The rest of the short is Sylvester trying to eat Tweetie while Tweetie fights back. Gordon, what do you think of this short?
I will start off by saying, for this, when I watched all 5 of these this afternoon, I did them alphabetically regardless of the win, so I watched this one last. And I think that maybe hurt my perception of it because I watched it so close after a Tom and Jerry short. And the fact that he's a cat that in this is called Thomas, it does feel kind of like that's what they're trying to capitalize off of. Except Tweetie talks in this, and that's really the difference. I've never really been a big fan of Tweety Bird specifically in the pantheon of Looney Tunes characters. He's never been one of my favorites. Maybe it's just the voice. I think the voice is just a little grating to me. I didn't dislike this one. I thought it had some good bits to it. Um, but I think just the fact that I watched it last maybe dampened its impact a little bit. But it's still a good short. I think there's some good visual gags to it. I like how every time Thomas or Sylvester almost gets to Tweety, Tweety will like hold up something to indicate like, oh, I'm gonna be a bastard, but like I'm gonna make you realize it. And they have a good back and forth of Sylvester being like, please don't, and Tweety just nods his head and then like pulls the plug on the fan or whatever it is. I think that's a good bit that they keep going back to. But overall, I don't know if I loved this as much as some of the others here.
Yeah, I think I agree for the most part. All right, this is a very standard kind of cat and victim kind of short, or it's it. Although I what I was reminded most of was the Roadrunner and Coyote cartoons. Is this like because
Yeah,
it's very kind of I feel like episodic is the wrong word, but it's just like
it's vignettes.
it's
It's
very
done in
scene
vignettes.
yeah,
Yeah.
scene by scene kind of thing. It's just like when one gag stops, it's like there's a clear transition into the next one. It's like there's not a continuous motion here. It's just gag one, gag two, gag three until the end. Um, and although something I disagree if you want is that I rather like Tweety. I think Tweety is great. Hey, like as just a character. Or I love the voice. I love how he's such a little bastard all the time. I think he's just a great change of pace for like so it's like with when you have so many of these shorts out there that are just like thing A tries to eat thing B, and but thing B has to fight back. It's just like you need to try to separate yourself. And the way Looney Tunes has or Warner Brothers decided to who change things up with this dynamic is just make Tweety such a fucking asshole. And
Yeah.
it's just like that. I understand why people will hate him because of that. And it's just like I watched this video that was just like top 10 worst Looney Tunes characters. And
I think I saw that exact one too. Yeah.
yeah, and it's just like most of the list is just these obscure characters that you've never heard of. And then Tweety is just like number three on the list. And it's just like, okay, this guy just hates Tweety. But it's just like I found that a lot of people seem to hate Tweety, which was a bit of a surprise to me. But you know, I get it.
I
Um,
wrote in my overall notes for this, not for any individual short, but just for the overall notes for the year, that my thesis for a lot of early cartoons is just sometimes there's just a big guy and a little guy. And that's just like the premise of so many dynamics in cartoons. Like 3 out of these 5 cartoons can be summed up as sometimes there's just a big guy and a little guy, and that's the entire. That's all you
yeah.
need, and it works. Like I don't dislike the. I mean, there are other Tweety and Sylvester shorts that I do like that I think build on the premise, but
Mhm.
uh, maybe that's also part of what lowers this one for me is that because it's the first pairing, I know how much better it will get, and I know how much
Mhm.
more interesting they make this dynamic, and so this one just feels a little bit flat. Also, uh, very, very tangentially related, but you mentioned the thing about this being like in vignettes, kind of like the Wile E. Coyote Roadrunner ones, and it reminded me of this dumb little anecdote, but I want to bring it up. I so there's a theater in my state that's like half an hour from where I live that does repertory screenings of old movies, and before each one they show an old cartoon. And they showed, I think it's called Steel Wool. Do you know this one with Wile E. Coyote and the bulldog character or whatever it is? I
Oh, do
don't
you
remember.
mean like the sheepdog and the
Yes, the sheepdog.
yeah,
Yeah, because he's watching over sheep.
that's not Wile E. Coyote. That's I think
Is it
it's
not? It looks just like him.
it does
Or
look
maybe I'm
exactly like
remembering
him,
wrong.
but it's
Maybe I'm
not.
remembering wrong.
It's
Okay.
like something wolf. I forget his exact name.
That sounds right. But so there's a bit at one point in that short where not Wile E. Coyote apparently like sets up a like a lever underneath the sheepdog and is gonna jump on it. And you know, it's a stupid. The whole premise of these bits is that the sort of cunning one has all these traps that end up going wrong. And right before he's gonna jump on the lever, the guy in the row behind me turns to the woman he's with and goes, "That's not gonna work." Like loud enough that my dad and I could hear it and had to keep in our laughter for the rest of the short. Just at this, it's so dumb. He said it so matter of factly too, like, I've caught on to what the gist is here. That isn't going to work. I'm smart for realizing. It was so out of place contextually that has stuck with me. Anytime I watch any of these shorts from now on, like, that's not gonna work.
Yeah. First off, I looked up the name. It's Ralph Wolf and Sam Sheepdog.
Yes,
But yeah, that's a really good thing. And I actually find myself really liking the Ralph and Sheepdog shorts. I think they do the Roadrunner Coyote bit a lot better. Or it's like I've seen a few of them just on my own, just watching short films and stuff. And it's like I really like that pairing. I think they're really underrated.
It is. Yeah, I don't know if I've seen all that many more, but I did like it. I like that there's a tangible goal that isn't just, I want to kill this guy so I can eat him. It's, I want to get rid of this guy so I can get his sheep. And I also like the framing device of, this is just their day-to-day job, is that he's the sheepdog and he's the predator, and his job is to try to get one over on the sheepdog. It's a funny bit. The definitely underrated in the overall sort of the ones that we remember currently nowadays.
Yeah, that's a running thing throughout all those shorts, is that like they're very cordial to each other. Like just generally, it's just like and it is just like kind of a job to them. Like they're very. It's a really nice dynamic, and I wish more people would like notice them, like know more about them. Although it does hurt that like Ralph Wolf has the exact same design as Wile E. Coyote, except
to the point that I thought it was him.
Yeah,
and I
think the only difference is the nose is a different color. I mean, and sometimes I think the fur is also different, but that's it.
That's entirely plausible.
But yeah, back to Tweetie Pie. We kind of went off a bit there.
Yeah, sorry about that. I just remembered that and I had to bring it up because it's tangentially related. It's animated shorts.
But yeah, and it's also like Looney Tunes Merry Melodies. It's the same genre, and it's the same type of short where Thing A tries to get Thing B or whatever.
Except this one time, it's a big guy and another big guy.
Yeah.
That's the difference.
That's what makes it work.
It's two big guys.
Yeah, they're equally matched.
It's like the Don Draper putting the S on it, but it's like big guy and big guy, and just you can imagine the boardroom just standing up and clapping like, yes, we got it, we have a new idea.
Yeah. This is fun.
Okay, Tweetie Pie.
I'm really glad I'm doing this podcast.
Yeah, it's the perfect concept. I'm glad that I get to come on again, because this is the perfect year for it. There's a lot of fun stuff, a lot of big guys and little guys.
It's like this podcast is just kind of like it's my disguise for it is that like, oh, I want to teach people about animation history, but really it's just me getting a chance to talk about movies with my friends.
I love it.
And it's just like
what we should all be striving for at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Anyway, Tweetie Pie. I just wanted to say that like a lot of the gags kind of feel the same. Like there's like 2 or 3 different jokes that are just Sylvester builds tower of furniture
and then gets hit by a broom.
Tower falls down. Sylvester tries to pretend he's sleeping, so his owner doesn't like beat him up, but then his owner beats him up with a broom. It's like that's repeated like 2 or 3 different times, and it's just like, yeah, it was kind of funny the first time, but then it's just like you're doing the same joke again, just a little bit differently, that to a point that it doesn't feel like a different joke.
Yeah, if you have a 7-minute short and some of the jokes start to feel repetitive, that's maybe a bit of a pacing issue. But then they do drop it eventually. He ties a fan to himself and uses it like a helicopter. Yeah. He sets up a whole Rube Goldberg machine and then accidentally has it end where he's standing instead of where Tweetie's standing, which I thought was a good payoff to that bit, that he just built it wrong. And then yeah, it's good. I think that's really all I have to say about it. Is it's pretty good.
I just want to, for one last note before I move on to our next short. I think my favorite gag in it was when, uh, so in the previous attempt, it's just like Tweety starts shouting a bunch as it's like trying to get the attention of the owner.
Oh yeah.
So on the next gag, Sylvester traps Tweety in a glass, and he's like doing all this noise, not realizing uh he's not being heard. And Sylvester is looking all smug, like he finally did it. And then Tweety just has a pin that's aimed directly at Sylvester's hand, and
That's a good bit. I did
it,
like that.
yeah, and it does like what you mentioned earlier, how Sylvester is like shaking his head and Tweety shakes his head, and then eventually down comes the needle. Sylvester screams, owner comes running and beats him up. Yeah.
Yes.
Anyway, solid short. And
Yeah.
now we'll move on to our second nominee, which is Chip and Dale, directed by Jack Hanna. This is the 23rd nomination for Walt Disney in this category, as well as the second nomination for the titular pair of chipmunks, as well as the fifth nomination for Donald Duck. This short marks the first time that Donald encounters Chip and Dale, as well as the first two shorts, or wait, as Chip and Dale's first two shorts were with Mickey and Pluto, including previous nominee Squatter's Rights. From this point on, the pair would tend to face off against Donald, though there were a few later shorts where Pluto or other characters come as well. Um, the short itself is about Donald Duck having trouble sleeping because he's so cold, so he chops down a little tree which happens to contain Chip and Dale to use in his fire, and thus a war is started over this log. Uh, Now I like this short. It's just like the previous short of Chip and Dale, Squatter's Rights. It was a fine short. It had some good bits with Pluto and the chipmunks, but I think here is done a lot better. I think, which might just be because I think Donald is a better character than either Mickey or Pluto. But I
Yeah.
think just like the chipmunks are really cute. Donald is a lot of fun. Put them together, I think you just get comedy gold, and that might be why that their pairing was so strong and got repeated so much, and rather than using any other character with Chip and Dale. Oh, yeah, that's about it. It's just like
Yeah.
this is just a really good Donald Duck meets Chip and Dale. They have a lot of gags, and it's fun. What about
I
you?
mean, I feel like I understand just like on a formula level why that is. Like for one, Pluto is a nonverbal character, so you don't really get as much of a reaction. You get the animated reaction, but it helps to have that vocal reaction too. And Mickey angry doesn't always work, but Donald angry, like that is comedy gold, right? The just the sounds of angry Donald Duck, that is one of the funniest things that's ever been put to film. And so to have him be angry at these chipmunks, that's pretty good. That's gonna work. That explains why the dynamic works so well, because these are some little bastards to him. This time it's a big guy and two little guys.
Big guy,
That's the
two
twist on
little
the
guys.
formula here. Um, yeah, no, I thought this was a good one. There were some good bits. It also kind of falls into the same trap that Tweetie Pie did, I feel like, where some of the jokes feel a bit samey, but I think it has enough variation on them that I ultimately, I think I do like this one a little bit more because of those variations, and also because I like Donald as a character more than I like Sylvester as well. So there's a lot of leniency for that in my book. But yeah, I thought this was fun. There were some good bits. I liked when whichever is the dumber chipmunk keeps
That's
trying
Dale.
to, yeah, whenever Dale keeps trying to kick Donald in the butt, but he's just too small, so he keeps falling down. I thought that was a good little bit. I like every time he just fucks up in general. There's a good dynamic between the two of them fighting, and also the two of them fighting Donald. I think because you have more character dynamics, I think that just helps it.
Yeah, it's just a lot of it is just kind of like the setups to the jokes themselves aren't all that ingenious, but it's helped by just the personalities of the different characters. I think this is
For sure.
really based a lot on like how much you like these specific characters and just the situation they've been thrust into. And it's just like, and I like these characters, so it works really well for me. And I do really like the when Dale keeps trying to kick Donald, and the payoff for it when he finally does get to kick him at the end, I think is just
Yeah,
it's really satisfying. Uh,
for sure.
yeah, it's there's not that much to say about this. It's just a simple short that simple works though. It was a very good, very funny short. I really liked it.
Yeah, I thought it was fun. Question briefly, are we supposed to understand anything that they're saying at all here?
Uh, Donald, I think, is meant to be understood. Chip and Dale,
Yeah,
not
I
so
think
much.
there was some Donald stuff that I don't know, it's been I've done other things since I watched it. I watched the other four after this one, so I don't remember. But yeah, there were bits where he's talking and I understood him. But the chipmunks, oh, the one that talks, at least Chip, not very under. He talks
Yeah,
very fast
yeah.
and very high pitched.
It Chip isn't really meant to be like his dialogue isn't meant to be understood. You're just
Okay,
meant to
good.
get the general idea of what he's probably saying.
That tracks.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. Some Donald shorts kind of falter because you are meant to understand what he's saying despite his voice, and so things kind of get a bit muddled. But
Oh,
I
yeah,
I I work with it.
yeah. You got it. You got it. That's the whole joke.
Hmm. Do you have anything else to say about this, or are we good to move on?
We're good to move on.
All
Although,
right.
wait, no, I
Oh,
did like the bit where they knock on his door and push the snowball down the hill, and he opens the door to see who it is, and the snowball just runs him over. I thought that was a good joke.
I really like. I think the joke before that was is what Donald Duck finally like grabs them and he puts them in a snowball and just rolls them down the roof. And they fall off. It's a big crash or
Yeah,
whatever. It There's a lot of fun gags in this.
there's good snow
Yeah.
humor here.
All right. So our third nominee is Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Mouse, directed by William Hanna and Joseph Barbera. This is the 10th nomination for Fred Quimby and the 7th for Tom and Jerry. This short, which takes inspiration from the story of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde by Robert Louis Stevenson, starts with Tom the cat trying to stop Jerry the mouse from drinking his milk. Suddenly, Tom gets the idea to poison the milk and let Jerry drink it. Tom adds a bunch of chemicals to it, but rather than poison Jerry, it makes him super strong, but only for a limited time. Gordon, what did you think of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Mouse?
I thought this was really fun. I've always liked Tom and Jerry. I think they are the perfect encapsulation of the big guy and little guy dynamic. Like
Hmm.
they perfected it and just kept on building on that to make it, it that they were able to keep that fresh and interesting every time, and put these twists on it, like this one where there's poison and I don't know. I've always liked their dynamic, and I think this is a fun uh, just iteration of them. I like the pacing on this one where the first like half of it is just regular Tom and Jerry hijinks, and then it turns into the Jekyll and Hyde part. Like after there's several other beats of Jerry getting the milk and Tom trying to keep the milk away. I think it's well done. I like the payoff for like every joke. I think the payoff works really well. Yeah, I really liked this one overall. I had a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, this is just another solid like Tom and Jerry short. Oh, so as opposed to Tweetie Pie, which is very segmented, all the Tom and Jerry shorts have a much more fluid kind of motion to them. There's so much like constant movement and stuff, so you never really feel like a distinct like stop and start to the gags or anything. It just kind of keeps moving fluidly from each different set piece or whatever. And for this short specifically, it's just like I think they did a really good job with the poison, the mixture, the potion that makes Jerry strong. And yeah, it's just really good. It's like when Jerry first drinks it, and then he has the weird transformation sequence. That's a lot of fun. Then when he finally get, it turns out he grows a bit and becomes really strong, and it starts like slowly marching towards Tom, and Tom is clearly afraid of him. It's just like
Yeah,
it, it's just really well done. Like this is a simple premise done and executed to its fullest potential.
yeah,
Uh,
because it could have just been Tom makes poison milk, Jerry drinks it, gets big, that's the payoff. But there's like 6 or 7 different payoffs to that premise.
Mhm.
He thinks Jerry dies. Jerry gets big. The bigness doesn't last forever. So they're fighting over getting more milk. And then Jerry makes the poison. Tom drinks it. Tom gets big, and then Tom gets small. Like, that's so many different ways of playing with that premise that like they're really able to pack so much into. And like, I think another reason why I really like their dynamic more so than I like the Sylvester and Tweety dynamic is that they are both nonverbal characters. So
Mhm.
all of the jokes are on the visuals. Like, more time is spent on the visual gags and making them work on their own rather than being able to rely on like a funny voice or a funny line. Which is at the end of the day what I want in my big guy little guy cartoons is visual gags that work. And just they all work really well in this one. I think it really captures everything that I love about Tom and Jerry, uh, all in one perfect little capsule.
Yeah, and it's just like, and it's weird how like, and there are some Tom and Jerry shorts when they do talk, some for like a
Yeah,
weirdly extended period of time, and like those are always kind of the worst shorts, worst
yeah.
Tom
I,
and
I
Jerry
don't
shorts.
I don't like it when Tom talks. He's not supposed to talk. He's supposed to look scared and
Yeah,
also look angry, and that's it. That's all I need from my Tom.
yeah, yeah, and also like he yells, but and he's allowed like one line per
Yeah,
short. Like he could say
yeah.
like one funny little thing. Like one of my favorite Tom and Jerry gags is in one of the previous nominees. I forget which. I think it's Mouse Trouble. But there's the famous thing where it's just like, uh, when he thinks he has Jerry cornered as it's like it goes to fight him off screen, but then he comes back all bruised up and he's just like, "Don't you believe it?" And like that's just
Oh yeah,
every time. And uh and that's apparently a reference to some radio program from the time too. Just
yeah. I
fun
think I saw
fact.
that going around Twitter like the past week. Someone
Yeah.
brought up that exact bit.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah. It gets brought up a lot on
yeah,
it's a famous gag.
yeah,
Uh
yeah. But those are few and far between. Those
yeah,
aren't
yeah, yeah.
every time. And I
Uh
think, yeah. Also, I do like that it's not just that Tom gets littler when he drinks it. It's that he gets big and then he gets really little, and then he
mhm.
just keeps getting littler and
Yeah.
littler and littler, and Jerry just like loves it.
I
It's a good
I
ending. It's a good final bit.
I love Tiny Tom so much. He is so cute. Like
It's
just the
adorable.
little Tom and
I
Big
also
Jerry.
it's a great like visual thing is that when he gets smaller, he becomes more Jerry like and he becomes like he stands upright and he moves more like Jerry. And it's a great way of making
Mhm.
him seem more vulnerable. It's a
Mhm.
good the animation, as always, is really spot on
Yeah,
here.
it's really Tom and Jerry just always so creative. Uh
Yeah.
and before we move on to the next nominee, I just want to pose a question. So, like I mentioned at the start of the podcast, this comes after a 4-year winning streak from Tom and Jerry. It's like, and Tweety Pie breaks that streak. And it's just like this is or those were like the first 4 out of 7 eventual wins for Tom and Jerry, including next year is also another win for Tom and Jerry. So I'm wondering, like, can you think of a reason why Tweety Pie won over this? It's like why that was like this was for some reason the breaking point for their streak that like and Tweety Pie was just so much better than another Tom and Jerry short.
I think what it would be like the thing that I can think of is that because it's up against another Tom and Jerry, and because it's the same premise but with new characters, it feels fresher.
Mhm.
I would wonder if it's something like that, where it's like, okay, maybe we don't want to give it to 5 Tom and Jerry's in a row, but here's another way to give it to Tom and Jerry without it being giving it to Tom and Jerry. Here's
Mhm.
maybe it's a bird this time, and that's our way of we really fucking love these big guy little guy cartoons, but we can't just keep giving it to Tom and Jerry. But here's a different big guy little guy.
Now you got me thinking. It was just like how many of these non Tom and Jerry winners are still big guy, little guy cartoons.
I mean, you have 3 out of 5 nominees here, and arguably like maybe even 4 if you want to really like. I mean, really, even like the other two aren't big guy, little guy adversarial dynamics, but they are about a big guy and a little guy
Yeah.
visually.
Yeah, those other
So
two, like one has a big guy being sad because of a bunch of little guys not liking him, and the other has
I
a
mean,
big
both
guy
of them
getting help from a little guy.
because a bunch of other little guys
Oh
and
yeah.
big guys don't like him. And
Yeah.
like it's big guy, little guy all the way down.
Hmm.
That's
Yeah.
that's my new conspiracy theory. All
Yeah.
animation is big guys and little guys.
Yeah. And I feel like a lot of times the so like the standard for big guy little guy, or like the expected thing, is that big guy is adversary to little guy and little guy is the hero that fights back or whatever. But like at this point in animation history or whatever, because like we've had so many years of big guy trying to eat little guy or whatever, there's a lot more trying to make the little guy just like unlikable and make you try and root for the big guy, because there's
Yeah.
been so much where like the little guy keeps on winning. It's just like you kind of want him to fail at this point.
Yeah. When are we gonna give the big guys a chance?
Hmm.
Too much power has been given to the little people.
Hmm. Yeah. But yeah,
I don't know.
back to Tweetie Pie versus Tom and Jerry. I think it is, my thought process through it is just that I think people just really loved Tweety at the time because Tweety and Sylvester, at least, because Sylvester is going to turn out to be a really popular character in this category. Like he is the most nominated character behind Tom and
Oh,
Jerry. He
that's interesting.
and Tweety is also, we have like 3 or 4 different Tweety shorts also nominated in this category. So I think it's just like Tweety was such a big hit, or Tweety and Sylvester were such a big hit that like they were able to topple Tom and Jerry in their prime
Yeah.
somehow.
I mean, Tweety Bird is still a big hit. Go to like any boardwalk, you'll find a t-shirt of Tweety Bird smoking weed and wearing sunglasses. And like that's cool, I guess. That's what the cool people wear is Tweety Bird smoking weed.
I so like I don't know how we could do this, but I want to try and figure out like who are the most recognizable Looney Tunes. Like who, like if you showed a picture to just a random person, how likely are they to be able to recognize any specific character? And it's like who is the most recognizable? So I feel like Bugs Bunny has to be number one. Like he's,
He has to be, but behind him, it might be Tweety Bird.
yeah, it might be Tweety, it might be Daffy, it might be, there's a lot
I
of
mean,
people it could be.
it's either those two or Porky Pig, and I don't know who else you would put above any of them.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. That's an interesting concept, though. I wonder.
Yeah, I just need to find the right methodology and find a, I don't know, someone famous to help me get the word out there, to help me research this.
Yes, that's the new concept. That's what the podcast will turn into, is who's the most iconic Looney Tune.
Yeah. And just watched it turn out to be like Yosemite Sam or something.
Yeah,
like,
or I don't even remember her name, but the female Porky Pig that's just Porky Pig with pigtails.
Oh, I don't even know her name.
I think that might, yeah. Does she have a name? She might not have a name.
She must have a name. Like they all have names.
She has to have a name, but like she might not have a name. I don't know.
Google Porky Pig girl and see what comes up. Petunia Pig? Or that might be Tiny. Oh, no, it's Petunia Pig. Yeah,
okay.
That's her.
Yeah. I mean, obviously she's not the most recognizable.
Yeah,
neither of us knew her name.
We've established that it's definitely not her.
Yeah.
Maybe it's Granny.
Of course it's Granny. Of course it's Granny.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. do we want to move on to these?
Yeah,
other
I was about to
Okay.
say,
Yeah.
let's move on to our fourth nominee, which is Pluto's Blue Note, directed by Charles A. Nichols. This is the 24th nomination for Walt Disney and the 5th nomination for Pluto, his first nomination without Mickey weighing him down. This short has Pluto desperate to sing in harmony with the songs of nature, but his barks and growls are discordant. Uh, yeah, very simple premise, and I like this short. I thought it was really kind of sweet. Because it's an ugly duckling kind of story. Where it's just like Pluto finds out that he wants to fit in, but he can't because he's just not like anyone else. And so he finds something that makes him unique, and he uses that to finally gain love and admiration from his peers, or at least the other animals that are near him.
Yeah. Yeah. So this was the one that I had seen before.
Oh, okay.
I tried to find, like, I looked on whatever, like, Disney Wiki has an entry for this short, and it lists like the home releases that it was on, and I couldn't like pair it up exactly to any of those that it lists, at least. So I don't know where I watched this, but I know I watched it a ton because from like the first few notes of the bees singing or whatever it is, I was like, oh, I know this short. I recognize this tune. I watched this enough times as a kid that like that stuck in my head. And every time, like, I have no idea what VHS it was on or whatever, but I know I've seen this a bunch. So it was a big like nostalgia kick of like, oh, I loved this when I was younger, and I still do. I think it's really fun. It's a good premise that, even though it does kind of repeat some of the same jokes, I think it has enough variation, and then the ending payoff to it is satisfying enough that like it can repeat a few jokes. It's good. It's fun. You don't need much more than what you get, and I think it has some issues. There's some stuff that's a bit grating, but it's fine.
Yeah, like this is a short that, like, if it were a minute or two longer, it would have outstayed its welcome. But luckily, it's the length that it is, and so it it's the exact length that this kind of short should be, so that you get the point, you get that Pluto side without, like, rubbing it in or anything. It moves on quickly to like to the record store, and then to Pluto discovering that he can play records out of his mouth, and then he exploits that to
Yeah,
get friends.
absolutely. That's the message of the short is lie about your abilities and people will like you and find you attractive.
Exactly. It's a good lesson for the kids, you know?
Yeah. Take credit for other people's art and it will make you popular.
Yeah. Just be a liar and a fraud, and you'll get friends, and nothing bad will ever happen.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
I do like that bit at the end though, where he's somehow he managed to, I guess, buy the record player and a different record, or he stole it, or whatever. I don't question the logic of
Yeah.
of this cartoon.
I,
But
I,
he has it in his doghouse, and he's just sort of like crooning this song. And not only does he win the respect of the bees and cricket and birds that have been that so rudely shunned him for his tone deaf dog sounds, but he also wins over this just like pack of various breeds of lady dogs across the street that just scream every few seconds because of how much they love this dog singing, which is such a like it's one of those instances where the first time it's kind of jarring, the next few times it's really annoying, and then the next few times after that it's so random and offbeat and weird that it comes back around to being funny because it's such a just like ah! And it cuts like the audio that they use, it's the same audio repeated over and over, and it cuts off so abruptly that like the I don't know, the way it's used is funny without it being an actually funny joke. I don't know how to describe that any better than that, but it's accidentally funny, and I think it bumps this up a whole star just because of how weird of a note to end off on it is. These screaming dogs.
Yeah, and I like Pluto's like final look into the camera where he smiles. It's just like finally I've won or whatever. But it's such like a
Yes.
weird expression he has. And like all that entire last thing where he's miming the singing or whatever, like his face is so weird during that part. Like
The whole short, his face, like I've never noticed until watching this time around. Pluto looks really fucked up. Just like the design of him is really unsettling. There's the point even in the record store where he realizes that he can play the record and he starts like dancing around in place and it's so janky and off-putting and he looks like a demon almost. The way that his face and his body just move, it's unsettling.
yeah, it's,
Pluto's a nasty little freak.
this is a really interestingly animated Pluto short. Like they try to do a few things with the animation. Uh,
The teeth I think are what really do it. He looks like a horse. He looks like if they made a horse a dog.
and it's funny because it's like this happens a lot with some anime characters where it's just like sometimes they have teeth, sometimes they don't. And it's just like, are they retractable or something?
Yeah. What's up with Pluto's mouth, dog?
Mm-hmm.
What's going on there?
Yeah, he's just a weird little guy and we love him for it. Also, the
Yeah.
wrinkles can be really weird. It's just like
Yeah. It looks like you could just like slough his skin right off his body.
mhm. I want to know what a smooth Pluto looks like.
I don't want to know what a smooth Pluto looks like. That's unsettling. That's even worse. That's even worse. Dogs aren't smooth. Dogs aren't smooth like that.
Shiny Pluto.
No.
Gotta wax
Oh god.
no.
He's like a fucking like gecko. It's just like slimy. Like there's not even scales. It's just whatever. And he's like a frog
wet all the time.
He's just like a wet frog of a dog. I don't like that. I don't like that image. Oh god.
There's one more thing I wanted to talk about, and it was just like, so we have this short, and it's just like and you mentioned how the girl dogs are driven wild by Pluto singing, and it's like he's definitely he's doing the this whole crooner thing that was popular in the 40s, and there's another nominated short, Swooner Crooner from a few years ago, that is kind of reiterates the same thing, how like there's a bunch of these chickens and just like in this chicken factory is Porky Pig short, and then they aren't laying that many eggs, but then Porky brings in a chicken that looks like Frank Sinatra, who sings very beautifully, and then they lay a bunch of eggs. And there's also another one that's like Bing Crosby. There's a weird war between them, and then them singing together makes even Porky lay eggs. It's a fun short.
I don't like the implications there.
Yeah.
Because like also like we know what eggs are. We know what that's implying. That's gross.
Yeah.
That's real gross.
Porky Pig is gay for chickens, you know?
Yeah,
anyway.
but also just like the premise of that is they bring in a singer that's so good he makes all the chickens come.
Mm-hmm.
And that's gross. That's gross.
Yeah. But what my point was that
yes,
I never really thought about how so we know about Beatlemania, and if for those of us who saw Elvis, we see how the girls just go wild for Elvis, and all the way up to like modern day with like the K-pop stars or whatever. Or it's just like I never considered like applying that to like Frank Sinatra or Bing Crosby.
Oh, Sinatra was huge.
Yeah,
I took a class a couple semesters ago on like rock hip hop and the revolution, and like how 20th century music and like popular music like how that sort of tied in with social change of the time. And like the first couple weeks we talked about mostly Sinatra as a precursor to the mania of these young hot white guys that like stirred up the youths. And like when Sinatra was younger, he was that. And it's weird to think back on now where he's just like the old gray hair like very square lounge singer. But like when he was younger, he was that level of like the girls are into him and the establishment hates him because the young people think Sinatra's so cool.
Mm-hmm.
Weird.
Yeah.
Weird to think about.
And just imagining like a bunch of teenage girls like screaming so loud at a Frank Sinatra concert that's
Oh,
just like they can't.
They did. It's
Yeah.
wild.
Yeah. And actually thinking about that really adds a lot of context to like his early career and stuff. Like when he was in like Anchors Away, that was them just casting a popular singer in the movie just so it could sell more tickets or whatever. Or and then
Yeah.
like imagining like I'm trying to think of an equivalent singer, but like getting him cast or like he was cast in From Here to Eternity and won an Oscar. It's just like imagine if like a random example, Harry Styles, that happened to
Yeah,
him. It's just like insane to me.
that's the one I was thinking of. But I feel like there's it feels weird to call Harry Styles the modern Frank Sinatra, but
I didn't want to imply that. I was just
yeah, no, I can't think of someone else either. But yeah, no, it was absolutely that like when you read up on the actual like first 20 years of Sinatra's career, it's fascinating. It is fascinating how much his image changed over time in a way that like nobody really talks about nowadays when we talk about like when you talk about Sinatra, that's not the part of his career that ever comes up. But there's some really interesting history there. Interesting guy.
Yeah, yeah. Frank Sinatra is a really just fascinating figure. Like throughout his life, there's a lot of interesting stories, like all the way up to the end. Because apparently, if I remember correctly, he died the same day that the Seinfeld finale premiered.
Oh yeah,
and that it's just like, and it was lucky that happened because they were able to like the roads were all clear because everybody was watching Seinfeld, so they could get him quickly to the hospital or whatever. But he still died.
Interesting. Oh yeah. Yeah. Wild.
Yeah. Anyway, I think Frank Sinatra dying on this in Seinfeld is a good way to transition to our fifth and final nominee, which
Of
is
course. What
Tubby
better
the
way?
Tuba, because that Seinfeld is so relevant to this.
Yes, of course.
Directed by George Powell. This is George Powell's seventh and thank God final nomination in this category. While Powell never won an Oscar, he did receive an honorary one in 1944 for his Puppetoon series, which is what got him into 7 nominations, and honoring his advancement of stop motion animation. But after doing the Puppetoons, Powell would focus instead on producing and directing live action feature films, starting in the 50s with Destination Moon, and making films such as When Worlds Collide, The War of the Worlds, Tom Thumb, The Time Machine, and The Seven Faces of Dr. Lao, which was his final film as a director. If you've heard any of the other episodes discussing Powell, I do not need to repeat my thoughts on him as a filmmaker. But as for Tubby the Tuba, which is based on a song of the same name, it is about a tuba named Tubby who is sad about never getting any pretty melodies. Gordon, what do you think of our final nominee?
I might have a little bit of bias here because I actually did play the tuba for 3 years in middle school, which is like not I wasn't good. I wasn't good at it. I don't have any airs about that. But I did relate a little bit to the how come we never get any of the melodies. I think in watching this, I could think back and recall one point ever in those 3 years. I guess 4 years because I played the baritone in 5th grade. But across those 4 years, there was maybe one point where the 3 or 4 tubas that we had like were the forefront of any song at any point. So I kind of related a little bit. It's fine as a short. Like it's not the most interesting one. It certainly does go by very fast. There was a point where like I was writing something down and I paused to look up and I was halfway through and it felt like I just started. So I give it credit for that. It doesn't, drag on, but like there's really not a whole lot going on here. Yeah, that's about the extent of it.
So I kind of had an opposite experience of you. First off, including when I was in orchestra, I played the saxophone, and we got a few good melodies there. So
Oh yeah,
it sucks to suck, tuba.
it sure does. I agree with you there.
And also a thought I had was just like oh, it's like, oh, Tubby's so sad about not getting any pretty melodies, but won't someone spare a thought for the timpanis? They can't do melodies.
Yeah, but there's a power to them, and like there's a power to the tuba, but we're the structural support more so than anything.
I just
I
think
guess so's the timpani. I don't know.
I just think he's complaining about nothing. He should just suck it up. Anyway, and so while you felt that the short was going by really quickly, this was just a drag to sit through, as most of George Pal's shorts are for me. I just thought this was so boring to sit through, and I didn't care for Tubby as a character. I didn't care for any of the characters. None of them were
Yeah,
all that.
no.
I like the scenes with the bullfrog or whatever were just dragged on. The scenes at the orchestra dragged on. It's just like, and it's just a very simple. It's another an ugly duckling kind of story where it's just like he's rejected by his peers, but that he is able to show off what he can do, and then they suddenly like him even though they hated him just a second ago. It's like in the like last scene or whatever, her Tubby starts playing, everyone is hating him, but then the conductor's like, wait, play some more. And then they flip around and are like, wait, he's actually so cool. It's just like, you were just shitting on him 5 seconds ago.
Yeah. It's I did like one bit in this, and again, it's kind of a like, what is this moment that's so weird that like I almost have to respect it on that level where Tubby asks the bullfrog like, "Oh, can you sing?" And the frog is like, "Can I sing? Here." And then melody plays and he doesn't sing.
The music is supposed to be
It's
him singing.
it's supposed to be him singing, but like in the like less than a minute prior, we heard the frog do a little croak sing, and we heard him make frog noises to a melody. And then when he's actually supposed to sing, it's like, and then it ends and it's like, see, I can sing and I can sing orchestral without actually singing or using my voice. And that's how Tubby learns to play this one melody that people will like, I guess.
Yeah, but
It's a I don't know what's going on there, but it made me laugh.
yeah. What's going to happen when they ask him for another one? It's like he's just going to
Yes,
keep going back to the bullfrog.
yes, to go back to the frog. Again, stolen valor. It's all stolen valor.
Yeah. Yeah, so we got two kinds of shorts here. We either got big guy, little guy, or big guy pretends he can make good music.
Yes. Big sad guy make music.
Big guy sad, big guy want music.
Yeah. Yeah, those are the two. Those are the two. That's the dichotomy of animation.
Yeah.
I mean, that's it. Look back, every piece of animation
Every
fits into one of the two.
animated
No
short.
matter like not even animated shorts, just every piece of animation in any context is either big guy, little guy, or big sad guy make music. Those are the two things you can do in animation.
Mhm.
Kind of weird that they haven't tried anything else.
Yeah, it is a bit weird. Like after like over 100 years of animation, they haven't thought like, what if we made a third kind of movie? And they're like, nah,
Yeah.
it's too hard.
You would think so, but no. I mean, that's the animation binary for you.
Yeah, there's that quote that's about like nothing is original, or it's just like all stories are based on each other or whatever. Or and it's just like, well, maybe if they tried making a third story, there could be something original out there, you know? But I guess they didn't
I
try.
mean, what more is there? It's either big guy, little guy, or big sad guy make music. Those are the two things. Those are the two stories.
What
And
about
then it goes back to the Bible. Everything in the Bible. I mean, David and Goliath. That's a classic big guy, little guy.
and then Solomon, he's big guy, sad guy make music.
Yeah, yeah. Or David and Goliath 2, the Goliathening. That's big guy, sad guy make music. Yeah, that's the. See, that's what happens when you're not a religious person. You can't, off the top of your head, think of a different biblical story.
The funny thing is, though, like you had no way of knowing this, but there is a short that is nominated called Goliath 2.
Good God. Wow. Okay, I must have some type of magic, I guess.
You're
I
an
don't know.
oracle.
Absolutely. I should go do some miracles, I guess. I don't know. This took a weird turn. We got biblical with it.
It's whatever. but yeah, for a third story, maybe they could try thinking like little happy guy make music. Have you ever think of that?
Ooh. Ooh, that could be a good animation. Or what about Family Guy.
That's Big Guy, Little Guy again.
You're right. You're right. That's Big Guy, Little Guy. Okay, what about Family Guy 2? The guy.
That's Big Guy Make Music.
Shit. Okay, I got
We
nothing.
can't think of anything. We can't think.
I
of
got
anything.
nothing. I got nothing. Oh God. Oh God.
And I just realized, I don't know, I forget if it was last year or the year before, but there's a Tom and Jerry short, the Cat Concerto, and that's both
Oh yeah.
Big Guy, Little Guy, and Big Sad Guy Make Music.
They cracked the code. That's the third one. Is
Mhm.
what if it's both? Because 1 + 2 is 3, and that's the third thing. They cracked it. Those are the three. Okay, there's 3 animations, and it's 2, and then
But
them both.
the third kind is just the first two combined, so it's like
Yes.
it's not really. It's still the first two.
Yeah. This has been a very weird extended bit where we're ignoring like most of animation, and I don't know how much of it is like a bit that anyone else will like latch onto other than us in this moment right now, but deal with it. You're not here and we are.
The thing is, though, I'm genuinely like thinking of other shorts, but then it's just like, oh, that could be considered Big Guy and Little Guy, or that could be considered Big Guy Make Music. It's just like,
See, the thing is, before I said Family Guy, there was a split second where like the only animation thing that I could think of was the Iron Giant, which is actually a Big Guy, Little Guy. And
Yeah.
so the joke wouldn't have worked. And so Family Guy was the only other thing I could think of. And that's also kind of Big Guy, Little Guy.
Yeah, because Peter Griffin is a big guy, and then you got Stewie Griffin, a little guy. It's just
That's a
like
little guy.
he's a little guy.
Yeah, that's a little guy.
But yeah, and it's just like, and just thinking of other shorts, it's just like you can stretch the definition of music. You can redefine the
Stretch the
scales
definition
of
of
how big
guy.
is big, how little is little. It's just like things can fit into these two very narrow boxes if you want to.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
That's maybe we did just crack the code of animation.
So
Maybe that's it.
I when I release this episode, I need to like when I make Twitter, when I post the tweet or whatever, I just need to point out just like if you're here to figure out like what animation is, like crack the code for history of animation, you just need to listen to this episode. We crack the code. We tell you everything.
We have defined animation right here. It has nothing to do with whether or not there's actual animating going on. It's all, is the story Big Guy, Little Guy, or is it Big Sad Guy Make Music? Then it's animation.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. That's all you need.
Exactly.
It's one of those two stories.
And I think that's a good place to move on to, as we've finished talking about the 5 nominees. Let's go through and rake them all. Gordon, start us off with your number 5.
My number 5 is Tubby the Tuba, which is fine, but nothing really happens, and it doesn't really, keep me interested all that much. But it was fine. I didn't dislike it, but that's as high of praise as I can really give it, I guess.
All right. My number 5 is also Tubby the Tuba, where it's just like most of these shorts are rather close together in quality, but this one is a definite bad short. I just do. It's how I feel about George Powell in general. I hate his guts. I hate his movies. And so it's just like, of course, he was going to end up in number 5, but it's a bit of a mystery how the other 4 will turn out. Ooh, what's your number 4?
Yeah. So I changed my rankings while we were talking here. So I think my number 4 is actually going to be Tweetie Pie. For all the reasons I said earlier, it's fine. It's good. I like parts to it, but it has less of a hook to me than the other 3. There's less of a thing to keep, and also like among its characters. Like I can separate Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Mouse from other Tom and Jerry shorts. I can separate Chip and Dale from other Chip and Dale and other Donald Duck shorts. I can separate Pluto's Blue Note from other Pluto shorts. But this one just is, by nature of it being the first Sylvester and Tweety short, it's like the most formulaic of its kind. And I think that it's not fair for me to judge it for that, but I'm going to judge it for that. So that's what puts it at 4 for me.
My number 4 is also Tweetie Pie, for the same reasons. It has the first short in this series syndrome, where it's like we talked about Tom and Jerry's first short when that was nominated, and that has a like it's just a generic big guy little guy short, or
They're still
before
working out
they
the kinks. They're still
yep
working out what makes these characters pop.
yeah, and like figuring out ways to reinvent it. And like for Tweety Pie, it's a generic big guy, little guy short. That it's kind of a Tom and Jerry ripoff, as we talked about so many different Tom and Jerry ripoffs at this time. And so they still need to work into like finding their groove and stuff. And it's like they got off to a killer start, like with Tweety, like Tweety being a very different kind of little guy. But it's just it at the end of the day, it's still just a generic big guy, little guy short.
It sure is. I'm glad that that has caught on now already within the context of this episode. I hope it carries on throughout. I hope big guy, little guy is terminology that sticks because it's really helpful
Yeah,
in describing so many of these concepts.
I'm really glad we came up with this, but I wish we came up with this earlier, because for another episode, I was stuck with calling the formula cat and victim. And it's like that doesn't flow up the tongue well.
I know, and it's not always
pretty awkward.
cats. But big
Yeah,
guy, little guy, that's gold, baby.
big guy, little guy. That's the perfect way to talk about these kind of shorts. But anyway, what's your number 3?
So my number 3 is Chip and Dale, which I liked it. I thought there were some good bits. Probably if I'm being, I guess, as objective as I can be, this would maybe be my number 2. But we'll get to that in a second. But it's fine. There's a lot to like here. And I think that it places solidly right in the middle for me. Yeah, that's about it.
My number 3 is Pluto's Blue Note. And I was wondering for a second if we were going to have the exact same rank. Like I was kind of guessing like what you were going to do, but I guess not.
No.
But for me, Pluto's Blue Note, it's a good Pluto short, but it's also just not a great Pluto short. It's solid. It's exactly what it needs to be, but it doesn't do anything too special beyond that. But it's a good short. Your number 2.
My number 2 is Pluto's Blue Note. Yeah, Pluto looks kind of fucked up. Yeah, the dog screaming gets unintentionally funny by the end. Yeah, there's not really a lot going on. But like I said, this was a wave of nostalgia coming over me watching this today. And just like recognizing all the bits as they play out and remembering how it went, just like that, I think really heightened my experience of it this time around because I watched it so many times as a kid. I remembered like the tune, like not even just of the original tune that he's trying to match with the birds and bees and stuff, but like when he's in the record store and his tail accidentally goes on the record and there's like 3 seconds of this like upbeat song coming out of his mouth. Like I remember that beat by beat. I think that was even something that was like stuck in my head a few years ago and I couldn't remember what it was from. And then watching this today, I was like, that's it. That's the one. That's the thing I was trying to think of all that time ago. So it was like, and then I guess it also made me think of a bunch of other shorts that must have been on the same VHS or a similar VHS compilation. So maybe I'm giving this way too much leeway, but it's my list. So I'm allowed to.
Yeah, you can do whatever you want with your list.
Yeah.
And I guess it's really lucky that I happened to give you this episode.
Absolutely. It was a real hidden treasure that was like a treasure that I had hidden and then forgot about.
Yeah, because since most of my guests don't really know much about this category, I just kind of been assigning the episodes to different people. That's it's just a bit of luck that you got this one.
Yeah.
But my number 2 is Chip and Dale, which, as I said earlier, it's just a very solid Donald Duck, Chip and Dale kind of short. Or I love Donald, I love Chip and Dale. They're great characters. They have a lot of great bits in here. It does fall into a bit stale territory with some of the gags, but it's just, so it works. It works as is. Just a good, fun short. And
Yeah.
your number 1, which turns out is also my number 1.
It's Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Mouse. Listen, you got Tom, you got Jerry, you got Big Jerry, you got Little Tom, You got Littler Tom. You got Poison Milk. What more could you want? It's great.
Yeah, it's a big guy, little guy short where the big guy turns into the little guy turns into the big guy.
It's the classic role reversal.
It's just good. It's there's a lot of fun animation, a lot of fun gags. It's good, solid Tom and Jerry fun. You can't go wrong unless you hate Tom and Jerry, which I know some people do. Cough, cough, Christoph. But it's good. I like it. It's good short. Check it out.
Check it out. If you like big guy, little guy, you're gonna like this one.
Mm-hmm. Big guy, little guy.
Yes.
All right.
Just hammer it home.
Yeah,
big guy, little guy.
I want the audience who is listening right now, however many people that may be, I want you to remember big guy, little guy.
I want all of you to get up out of your chairs right now.
Go to
the
your
window,
windows.
open it, stick your head out and yell, big guy, little guy. Oh man. That was a stupid joke. I'm sorry I made it.
No, it's good. It's a good way. It's
That's where I thought you were going with that. That's where I thought the bit was going.
I wasn't intentionally going there with that, but I'm glad you went there with that.
That's good. Okay.
Network's great.
Yeah.
But before we end our show, are there any final thoughts you'd like to share, Gordon, or anything you'd like to promote?
Final thoughts on these big guy, little guy. As if we haven't said it enough.
Big guy, little guy.
Yes. As far as promoting, you can find me. I have a podcast as well called The Lone Acting Nominees, where we talk about movies that only got one Oscar nomination, which was for one of the acting categories. You've been on it a couple times talking about a good movie and a bad movie, and you'll be on in the future. I know at least we have one lined up that is an interesting movie, at least, and that's coming up in the next couple months. So be on the lookout for that. You can find that on Twitter and Instagram at Lone Acting Noms. Twitter and Letterboxd at Lone Acting Noms. Instagram at The Lone Acting Nominees. You can find the show wherever you get your podcasts. It's called The Lone Acting Nominees.
All right. Yeah, I had realized after I said your intro at the beginning of this episode, however long ago that was, that I forgot to mention your podcast. I was like, God.
I've gotten in the habit of, on my show, just introducing people by name and then letting them plug at the end, because I don't know, I have some people that have podcasts and whole publications and some people that are just friends, and I like to keep it all equal.
Mm-hmm. I like to say something. It's just and
I probably should. I've just gotten in the habit of it.
Yeah, but it's if they don't have anything that they want me to promote or anything, I can't really find anything. I just say that they're my good friend, because they are usually my good friend. It's just
yeah, you would hope so.
Yeah, everybody on my podcast is a friend of mine. It's just
that's good.
But it's because they're the only people I could get on my podcast. So at least for now, in a couple episodes, I'm going to have a person who I didn't know before my start of this podcast, and now they're going to be on it. So we'll wait for that.
Hell yeah.
All right. But thank you, Gordon, for coming on the show, and thank you, listener, for tuning in. This has been the Short Podcast about short films. Until next time, goodbye.